Hey, so I'm here with Walter Harmon. Walt was the head coach for South High School, but he's been involved in Anchorage sports for many years in the scene as a head coach and an assistant coach, Pop Warner. So he's been at all levels. He's seen it all. His son, Jackson, currently plays FCS football at Montana State, the Bobcats. Coach Harmon, thank you for joining us today, my man.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you as always.
Hey, tell me a little bit. Let's start with the journey. What's it like walking Jackson through? And obviously, as a head coach yourself, it wasn't just Jackson, but for the parents out there, I kind of want your expertise in two worlds: fatherhood and coaching. What's that journey like walking Jackson through from high school to college ball?
It was challenging. It was tough. It was, you try really hard to separate the emotion of that as a head coach, right? Because I knew we were doing some good things and we had a special group of kids from that of a parent, and trying to support your son on a journey that he's been talking about for all his playing life. So the biggest thing that I had to really do, and I had embarked on this path years prior to, was really get current on what collegiate coaches wanted to see. How are they going to pay attention to our kids in Alaska? And what were the things that Jackson needed to do to check the boxes to get the attention of folks that would say, hey, I want to throw some money at your education and want you to come play football for us, and on and on and on. So those were some things that I had to take on, and it was a sobering journey. Things aren't as straightforward as one would think. Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban aren't going to call into Alaska demanding that they our kids come play for them, and these NIL deals are going to show up with $500,000 for these kids. It just doesn't work that way, right? And so the part about making sure the kids understood their responsibility, that was straightforward. There's a lot of information out there on that. I think there's a lot of coaches, including yourself and others. Galen Brantley's been great and certainly gave me a lot of information about what I needed to do. But I think there's a lot of organizations, groups, folks that are out there that tell you the fundamentals, the foundations, because every kid can run, jump, and catch. That's table stakes, right? So what differentiates them from other kids? And I think those are things that we really have to pay attention to, because I also think there's an additional level of diligence that we have to take our kids on because they're in Alaska. So, first and foremost, our kids are probably going to be paying out-of-state tuition. Unless they're attending a WUI school, or if they're looking at, some of the NAI schools in the Midwest, there's some opportunities there for some really affordable educations that make some sense. But for the most part, if a school is going to take a chance on a kid and they have to weigh the balance between, either paying full pop tuition or, a portion of that plays into that a little bit as well. So the parental piece of it, I think the challenge really was making sure that we understood the piece that was, how good are our kids and how good are they against the curve? If we're going to be playing or asking our kids to play at the next level, what opportunity does that present itself when a school or a roster or university has a maximum capacity of 125 kids or so? There's a lot of kids out there that want to play, that can play. So, how do our kids match up? And that was the sobering thing, because we all think our kids are pretty good, and they actually may be really good for Alaska. And so, what does that mean when they get into the real world? So getting your kids out those, early years, sophomore, junior, seniors, to camps, getting a chance to really understand where they fit against the curve. I think that's important too, especially as a parent, when you're trying to, look at these things very realistically. And that was sobering for me. That was good. I knew Jackson had some talent. I knew he's skilled, but I also was very realistic about where he was against, a lot of the other kids that we were seeing in different camps and different clinics and different things like that. So we knew where he was, and that helped a lot.
Let's talk about his junior year a little bit, going into his senior year. So, and kind of just like timeline crunch this again For everybody joining us, Jackson's an FCS athlete, so he's going to have some measurables that are going to get his name in the conversation, name in the discussion. Talk to me a little bit about that end of the junior year and then going into the senior. What does that offseason look like for those guys that want to go to college?
Yeah, and you're right. That is the absolute key moments. That junior one. College coaches want to see development. They want to see growth. Jackson had a big junior year. Senior year, he was injured a lot. Didn't play nearly as much. But physically, did you grow? Did you grow mentally? Did your grades modify? Did you do the things that we asked of you? And when you're getting recruited, especially as a junior or an underclassman, the process of creating those relationships is ongoing. These guys, it's not like they can drive up the street and see all the time. So Jackson had a lot of conversations with a lot of coaches that really spent time with him over a year's period, year plus. So they wanted to see not only the physical tools, and I think Jackson was fortunate that he had a lot of the boxes checked physically. He was tall, he was fast, he was rangy, he could run, he could jump, he could catch. But once again, so what? Everybody can, right? So that's expected. I think one of the differentiators for him, very honestly, Tim, he was a 3.89 GPA kid, right? He'd been taking AP classes a ton. He scored really well on his ACT. So those are all things that I think become differentiators for our kids. So if they're going to be considered, what are all those things that are away from your film, your video? Are you a good human? Can you hold a conversation? Are you mature? Tell me about your family. Was your dad an athlete? Was your mom an athlete? Do you have siblings? So those are a lot of the conversations that took place with him that I had a chance to listen into as a parent on the sidelines.
That's all. And did you guys go to camps at all during that off season at all for them to see the growth?
We did. Yeah. We spent time at, and of course, we did a lot of camps his sophomore, junior year, not so much junior, senior, kind of heading to senior because of the pandemic. Yeah. Everything was shut down. Travel was shut down. Campuses. So, our visit schedule was completely upended because Division I universities had restrictions. So our visits were to NAI schools, Division II schools, and, the best we could hope for in some cases was either virtual communications or virtual tours.
Yeah. What about so let's go. We've done the camps. We've and your story is definitely different because this was recruitment in a time of COVID. Hopefully, we're moving beyond some of those restrictive measures for that. So moving into, I'm a senior and I just finished my last football game. I'm done. Played in the Shrine game. Had a great time for charity. And now what? What do I do?
So and this is a conversation I'm going to have with a handful of kids that I can, I'm always available to help any kid that wants to get out and play. I think it's good for Alaska football. It's good for kids and whatever I've learned over the past years that I can share with families, kids, players, coaches. I'm absolutely willing to do that. So, my counsel to all the kids right now, polish up your huddle film. And your huddle film really, as it starts, it really needs to include your name, your class, your jersey number. Ideally, you have your height, weight, positions you played on there, and then some kind of way for a coach to contact you, your Twitter handle, your phone number, something like that. And then at that point, you try to publish that anywhere and everywhere so people can see it. That's your casting a wide net approach. And then the parallel approach is the more laser focused. I had a chance to, whether it's, Randy Klingemeyer's All Alaska camp, and I met some coaches there, and I got all their cards, and I'm going to follow up with those guys, right? And I'm going to send this directly to them. Or perhaps a good friend of mine or a good friend of my head coach has followers on Twitter that are coaching outside and definitely looking at kids. So I'm going to refollow those guys and make sure I share my content with them as well. And then I think the biggest thing, and then I really mean this sincerely, it's one thing for parents and coaches to take an interest in that kid's recruiting process, but the kid has to take an interest in his own recruitment. At the end of the day, none of us are going to go and get our, heads kicked in and have to, lift weights and get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do all the things it takes to be a collegiate athlete. So they need to be involved in that to make sure that this is something that they really want to do. And then when they have the conversation with that particular coach, make sure that they build that relationship and find out if this is somebody that they want to partake in their growth. It is, it's a 4-year journey. It's a, in some cases 5 or 6. So I think all of these things that they need to really kind of settle in on should be led by them and not, us. We help create those paths. We help grow them through the process, but ultimately those kids need to own their own recruitment process.
Let's go through that huddle film because I've seen conflicting things. I'd love to get your take on it. Now, Jackson's not a lineman. He's not a one. He was a guy that played quarterback. He's a guy that played DB. He's playing DB currently at Montana State. Talk to me a little bit about, hey, I'm a quarterback, but I know I'm not going to play quarterback at the next level. That's not in high school. We do things that help the team, that show our athleticism, that are for the experience. That's not always what you're going to get recruited as. Talk about putting your film together. What do you do when you put that film together? Man, I didn't play much receiver this year, more of a DB.
Right. Yeah, I think the running theme, and this has kind of been universal from every coach I've spoke with at the collegiate level. Your first 5 plays are your best football plays that you have. And if you play special teams, great. And that's that you have a highlight there, include that. If you made a really nifty play as a wildcat quarterback, because the coach thought enough of you to put you in there to do that, show that as well. And then the back end of that is probably going to show what you gravitate towards. Now, at the end of the day, kind of as we were saying earlier, I think as a kid, you really have to get good at manipulating your huddle film. Because one coach is going to see you as an offensive player, another coach is going to see you as a defensive player. And the faster you can recreate that film to highlight the things that they either have questions about or they think they see you as or that they want to see more of, the better you will become. So I witnessed Jackson, become a master at huddle film and manipulation. And I think one of the things that, his recruiting coordinator at Montana State, BJ Robertson, was most impressed by was the question they had about Jackson. Was like, hey, we like tough guys, right? I mean, we're Montana. We have Cowboys. I don't know. Are you tough? And, I'm not seeing it in your film. I see a good athlete. I see a guy who played quarterback. I see a guy who played a little bit of safety, but are you tough? And literally before they hung up off that call, Jackson had recreated a film for Coach Robertson that highlighted all of his aggressive plays, all of his tough guy plays, all this stuff. And so that was one of the things that Coach was really impressed about. And he was able to take that to Coach Choate and others to help with his recruiting process. And I definitely think all of our kids should be able to manipulate their film, right? If they have questions about your ability to catch or your ability to run, are you really as fast? Be able to find those little highlights within your compendium of film. And by the way, it can include your senior year and your junior year, right? Anything that showcases your abilities, especially abilities that they have questions about, is really good to include in that film.
I love what you said about being flexible and Jackson firing off another tape. Is that a separate tape? Is he just modifying his original? What would you recommend for that?
In Jackson's case, he had about 17 different highlight films, right? And depending on what coach was recruiting him and what they thought he was, he would just draw down that particular highlight film. Now, it didn't start with 17. It started with 1. And we sent it to, folks like, Randy Klingenmeyer. We sent it to, folks. I think I may even sent it to you, Tim, as well, different coaches that I know and trust to offer some feedback. And we took that feedback and we massaged it in place to come up with kind of a generic film. And then we pushed that out pretty aggressively. And Jackson took a strong position in his own recruitment. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew what he, didn't want to do. He knew where he wanted to kind of be geographically in the world. So he was pretty locked in that direction. So he solicited a lot of coaches. And then as he went through that process, that generic film became a compendium of films. Some offense, some defense, some showed off his speed, some showed off his range, some showed off his football intelligence, others showed off his aggression. So he had a kind of a different version for whatever that particular coach was looking for.
And I think that's a really, man, you hit it on the head. I love the idea of being flexible with your film and being able to fire off. I don't think there's anything harm done in creating on your Huddle profile page. It stores all those highlight films, and you could have a film called the aggression tape. I mean, like that's a perfect opportunity if you're questioned about what you can offer the table, that differentiates yourself, that you show that I got this film and I can manage it, and I'm really interested. And within minutes of our conversation, you're going to have a new film or another film highlighting the very questions you have. So being familiar with your entire season and seasons, is what I'm hearing you say. I love it. That's good.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you once again, I think, Jackson came out of high school. He was, 6'1.5", 175 pounds. His freshman year, he goes to Montana State. He's 6'2", he's 185 pounds. Here as he sits as a sophomore education, a redshirt freshman, he's 6'3" and 1/8", he's 210 pounds. So, I think as players, it's real easy to lock on to, I am a fill in the blank. I am this. And the reality of it is, I think all these coaches, what they really want is a football player. And so in the process of having a football player, they'll figure you out, and they'll figure you out where you're heading and where you're growing. So the process of doing that is a journey. And so Kyler, he's our Gatorade Player of the Year for Alaska. A couple years ago, guy played quarterback, but man, is he a tremendous athlete. And there was a lot of people that talked to him about changing positions, being a DB, being a receiver. And in his particular case, he really wanted a chance to try being a quarterback before he abandoned that position. And as you know, he's playing Division II ball. He's taking number 3 reps. They redshirt him, and this guy's he's gonna help his team in the future as a quarterback.
We've been talking a lot about getting there and finding a way to get there. What are we actually getting ourselves into? Can you give me just a snapshot of Jackson's day?
I think every kid should aspire to play at the highest level that their abilities will allow them to play. And I think that becomes a little subjective. Clearly, it's, the coach that's willing to take a chance on them. Certainly going to be restricted by their abilities, physical and otherwise. I think it's hard to achieve the highest levels. If you're not a student of learning, if you don't have the part figured out, that is the educational piece, is really tough there. That said, the most important thing is time management. And there's a lot of these kids who will absolutely tell you everything that you want to hear about the day. Jackson, in particular, his day starts around 6:30. He is heading across the street to get to the facility so he can start working on his recovery. So, as a guy who's been kind of nicked up so far throughout his career, he has to start with his treatment. And then usually for him, I think his in class ahead of field work, that's like 7:30. And those guys usually on the field for a couple hours. They come back, they eat, they take care of more recovery and fitness stuff. Jackson's off to class by 11:30. And usually that's going to run Monday through Friday till about 4:30-ish. And then these guys are back in practice for film, work, dinner, one-on-ones. And usually his day wraps up around 8 o'clock, 8:30. And that right now is especially as you're kind of wrapping up the end of the season, he's kind of nicked up. He's nursing an injury, but that's 6 days a week. Usually have a little bit of rest on Sunday. They have some therapies that they have to go to take care of their body, but it's a job. It's work. And the expectation is that you maintain your grades, you maintain your physical health, but more importantly, you provide that the thing that they recruited you for, that, very high level football play on the field and through the week. So it's a tough gig. It's not everybody's thing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much spending time on your vacation and getting a little Arizona sunlight.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous. But I can't think of a better guy to be jealous about. You've been a mentor to me and kids in this state, and I appreciate you. And thank you again for joining us today. And we will catch you next time we talk. All right, guys. Hey, we got Coach Galen Brantley from Soldotna High School in Soldotna, Alaska, as you guys know. And Coach Brantley, welcome. Thanks for jumping on this podcast or this Zoom. And real quick, just talk to me a little bit about interesting aspects of recruiting out of the peninsula, specifically in Alaska.
Well, I think, the peninsula is not a whole lot different than the rest of Alaska, and the fact that, we're all kind of rural, really, outside of that Anchorage Bowl. For us, as far as recruiting goes, I think it starts with film. These college coaches, they've all had access to Huddle for a number of years now, and they're pretty good at looking at Huddle and being able to tell, talent really pops off the film. It just does. And so, making sure players are making their highlights, getting those into the hands of the right people. And, those college coaches know what to do with the film once they get it.
Now, you've done this as a coach for many years, and you've done it as a father too. Talk about the film process as a coach and a father. What are the things that you're coaching your kids? And then what are the things you walked through with your kid as you guys went and looked at playing at the next level?
Well, I think a couple things. One is when it comes to the film, it's got to be front loaded. You got to put the best stuff in the front, the stuff that's going to catch coach's eyes, whether it was my own son or any other player. I think that's first and foremost. I think the other thing that we do too is we don't sit around and wait for opportunities. We figure out who our kids are interested in, where they can see themselves playing, and then we send film directly to those people. We reach out and make contact. I've got a couple of friends that are college coaches, and they hate getting emails from these recruiting companies. It inundates their emails. They're flooded. They want the kids to directly contact them, or the high school coaches to directly contact them. And that's what really starts the conversation.
What is a kid doing when he sends that? What does that contact look like? What's my name, my number, Huddle? What do we got?
Well, absolutely. I think all that stuff is important. I think we really try and target schools that have Alaskans on their roster. To me, they go right to the top of the list. And if they currently have Alaskans, and especially if they're kids that have been there for a few years, we know that they'll take chances on kids, that are from a long ways away. Our kids sometimes have a bad reputation because we've historically sent a lot of kids out that don't stick for a number of reasons. They have a rough home life, and maybe they struggled academically. They get far away from home, and if they're not playing early, or they don't have that emotional support, they don't tend to stick. And so, that's a huge one for us. I think if they've got Alaskans on the roster and those kids are sticking around, they got multiple Alaskans, then the culture and the foundation is there. And those are the schools that go right to the top of our list.
One of the things that I've heard come up, this is a thing in Alaska. We got to get these guys landed in schools where they stick. I almost feel like sometimes our kids don't know what they're signing up for. So as a dad of a current player and a former player yourself that left Alaska, went and played ball, what am I signing up for when I get that offer on Twitter?
We suffer from being the largest animal in the small animal division. I think our kids, they have a lot of success early because, let's face it, it's not Texas, it's not California. It's not we have kids that are good players and good enough to play at a lot of places. I think you accompany that with maybe some unrealistic expectations. I think kids, sometimes they all think they're D1 and don't realize that there's really, really good ball at Division II, NAI, D3. Every kid at an upper level NAI program is all state somewhere. Every single kid was all state somewhere. And so I think you got to get past that right away and understand it's still really, really good football and a great experience. I was down at my son's game, the last two games he had this last week, and there's a couple thousand people lined up, 2 hours before the game just for the kids to walk through. I mean, that community, it's a huge deal. They put $22 million into a stadium. There is a lot of really great experiences our kids miss on by maybe setting their expectations too high. And if you're good, let's face it, if you're a good enough player, they're going to find you, wherever you're at. There's guys going from every level that are making it, and so I'd never use that as as an excuse, but, and I think you got to go where they want you and they value you. I've had kids that have got their mindset on going to a particular place, but yet they didn't recruit them, didn't offer money. And the mountain is substantially taller to climb going into that situation versus a place where they really value me and they see me helping them, they see me playing for them, and they're willing to offer, more money up front and things. And so those are the situations where I think kids are more successful.
So I'm sitting there and I just got on. I'm an all-state football player. I arrived on campus week 3, week 4. I'm not starting at whatever. What type of advice do you have? Because I think kids that are going into this journey kind of need to know what their expectation. You're a freshman again. You're a freshman again. What's that like?
But I think that's it. Is you got to flip the switch. You got to understand that you are starting at the bottom, and that in a lot of cases you're a redshirt. You're not even a freshman yet. You're lower than a freshman. You don't travel. You're not there on pregame. You have the extra lifts in the morning, the extra study hall. There's a lot more things in place for you. I think the biggest thing is to be patient. I visited with one of my other players when I was out last week, and he's a straight red shirt, doesn't go to, he's wearing his sweatsuit on the sideline during the game kind of thing. And I'm visiting with the coaches, and I want every kid that's ever played for me that goes outside to be successful. And I'm visiting with the coaches, and the coaches are so excited about this kid, and they have a senior that's leaving, and they really believe that this red shirt is the next guy in, not the other kids on the roster. And I think that they have to understand that just because there's 2 or 3 guys ahead of me doesn't mean that they don't have a plan for me, because they do, And the other thing too is sometimes kids will go in with these huge freshman classes of 50 kids, and they start looking around at all these guys and everything, and they don't realize the amount of attrition that's going to take place. That might have started with 50, but by Christmas it's going to be 35. And then you're going to lose 4 or 5 a year every year until you get down to a class of probably less than 20. And if they can just persevere, they'll play. If they'll just last, they'll play. And the other obstacle I see too is, we have kids that will, everything comes easy academically. There's people looking out for them. When you get to college, you have to look out for you. And I think the other thing is we have kids, I had a kid a couple of years ago that went down and was all conference as a freshman and then never played another down, was ineligible by Christmas and never made it through. And it's so frustrating because it's not a lack of intelligence. It's not. It's just he didn't have the support around him to be successful. And that's another, obstacle is they have to go down and be willing to work, and number 2, be patient. And if you'll do those 2 things, the wait is worth it. I talked to another player of mine that's at Colorado Mesa that went in and kind of worked his way up and is finally starting this year. And it's just it was worth it. The 3 years of waiting, having a redshirt year, having a year where, things didn't happen right for him, had some injuries along the way, but really just kept battling his tail off, and everything has kind of fallen into place for him year 3, and still has, really 2 full years left after this. So, I'm excited to see it when kids do that. I have a player at that we both shared that's at Eastern New Mexico that is using his COVID year, on top of, he's like 6 years, he's already graduated with a criminology degree and playing a 6th year. And I mean, just kid loves football and is just hanging on to that experience as long as he can. And I couldn't be more proud of him, So there are a lot of success stories, there really are. but there are also a lot of stories of kids who had every bit of potential, but they weren't patient or they let things go in the classroom.
So I love that. The idea of the classroom and the resilience, you looking after you, that's huge. Let's kind of put our brains, rewind it to a junior. I just finished a successful high school football season, knowing now what I'm signing up for. I want that. I want to go on campus. I want to compete. I want to be the freshman at the extra lifts. What am I doing right now? I just finished my junior year. What am I doing now to get recruited, to find the place that wants me?
Well, I think number one is you have to take care of business in the classroom, because having helped multiple kids get recruited over the last 25 years, the GPA, and it just opens up so many doors for kids. The number of opportunities you'll have with a 2.5 versus a kid with a 3.5, it's 3 times as many opportunities, and so, that gets in the way sometimes with kids not being able to go where they want to go. Okay. And so the classroom first and foremost, and plus you want to be successful when you get there. I'm not, they don't want to bet on a kid with a 2.5 because it shows you're lazy. They want to bet on a kid that even if it takes him a little while, he's going to be okay. And you're there to get a degree. And so, I think that's the big one, is you got to take care of business in the classroom. The second thing, for me, the weight room is huge for one, and we all football coaches push the weight room. So I don't think that's a shock to anybody. For me, I would rather see kids compete in other sports. I'm a big multi-sport guy. I was fortunate enough to be able to do 3 sports in college. Nobody ever pressured me into choosing, and so I just hung on as long as I could. But I just think that kids will get so much more from like legitimate competition in other sports, whether it's wrestling or basketball or hockey or baseball, track. I don't really care what it is. Just to be out interacting with other teammates and competing. I just think there's so much value that we can tap into in the fall from seeing that out of kids, and it helps other programs. I hate your kids just want to play football attitude, and it's like, no, I want them doing other things. I'm coaching other sports. I'm trying to drag them with me, and it's a fight sometimes, kicking and screaming. They don't want to go. But it is the best thing you can do. Go compete in other sports, go hit the weight room, take care of academics. It's not complicated.
I love it. No, that's perfect. And we're coming up on time here, but the last thing I want to ask then is, okay, so that's the junior. I'm in the weight room. I'm playing other sports. I got my huddle film. I'm taking care of, checking the boxes. Now I'm a senior right now. And what do I do? I just finished.
I would say
what do I do?
Be patient right away, because college coaches are still playing. Okay. Don't panic. I have kids, sometimes they just think that things should be happening right now. It's like, no, these guys still have, 3 or 4 weeks of the season left. Be patient. Okay. As soon as they're done, they're going to be kicking it in high gear. And a lot of stuff happens as far as the contact and stuff is that middle of after Thanksgiving to December, is really when I would be trying to send out as much stuff as I can. But I'm a big proponent of contacting who you want to play for, and not sending out these like mass email that they know got sent to 70 schools or whatever. Okay, that doesn't say as much as when you contact them directly.
Perfect, man. Any final thoughts, words? Like, just if you have the whole audience, if anybody wants to play college football in Alaska, what's something to sum it up?
It's such an awesome experience, having been fortunate enough to not only do it myself, but also have a child that has gone on and is doing well and is being successful. I wouldn't trade it. It's such an awesome experience. And if mom and dad and God gifted you with the ability to go do it, you need to do it. You will regret it forever, and you'll be telling stories of all the great stuff you could have done if you don't go out and give it a shot.
Coach Brantley, thank you for your time, man. Appreciate you. All right, guys. Hey, what's up? I'm here with Coach Hollett. Coach Hollett is the head coach at North Pole High School. Coach, how long have you been there?
This is my 4th season, just ended.
Awesome. Awesome. And Coach, tell me a little bit about your playing experience and then what you did for your collegiate career.
So I played at North Pole, actually. way back in the early 2000s. Graduated in 2003, and then went to Valley City State. Played for 4 years there, and I was jamming my 4-year degree into 5, so I spent that 5th year helping coach. So, but yeah, that's my college experience.
I love it. What was when you so that was that's 20 years ago, a little less than.
Yeah.
What was the recruiting like then? Like what was the process?
I think the recruiting process was going through some changes or some upgrades or something. I remember getting a VHS tape from a school, and they wanted me to record my highlights on the VHS tape and then mail it back, so, and that was only 20 years ago. We were just experimenting with DVDs even at when I was at Valley helping out as a coach. We were burning DVDs to give it to coaches so that they could run their film session from their DVD players instead. Like everything's online now, so it was a different time, and technology has really changed and helped recruiting out. But I would say I didn't know a whole lot, as a kid. None of my family had really gone to college. Especially none of them had gone as athletes, none of my immediate family up here. And so just trying to figure out that process, you're getting letters from different places and trying to figure out where you're at. You're talking to your coach, and I had the great Buck Nystrom as a coach, and he was helping me out, wanted me to go to school, and felt like I was good enough for that. So he was really pushing me in that direction. But as far as, being around people or even understanding offers, what kind of offers would come your way and what it all meant, really was just kind of floundering, just a big old kid, small pond, and trying to figure out where I was going to go after that. The biggest thing that made a difference for me was Coach Mack from Valley. He actually came up here. And I'd received some letters from some other universities and stuff and some bigger schools. But Coach Mack came up here and sat down, had a conversation with me and talked about Valley, made me feel, wanted. And, he's excited to bring me on and stuff like that. So ultimately, that's how I ended up at Valley City, was just Coach Mack's kind of personal touch in that recruiting visit.
For Alaska, we have a lot of challenges, and you're in a different region than we're sitting here in South Central. Is there any specific thing about the interior that you noticed now as a head coach, even drawing back in your personal experiences, that challenges and opportunities that the interior provides?
I think one of the challenges is it's hard to get coaches up here, like if you're playing in the lower 48, and I don't know what it's like in Anchorage, but if you're playing in the lower 48, you might have a college coach that just kind of rolls in, is watching the game. Maybe they're watching someone specifically, but, you kind of get that hype of like, hey, there's some college coaches here, like we got to play well. And, you're just not going to get that up here. College coaches are doing their own thing. They got their own seasons going on during our season. So it's really difficult to get up here. So it makes that camp life during the summertime so much more important for our athletes to get seen by college coaches, get in front of them, talk to them, shake their hand. You got to be doing camps. The best thing for kids, if your team's going to a camp, go with your team. Right. Like if your team's leaving and they're going to go to, like, we used to take our team every year, but this last year we were able to get down to Eastern. We took 10, 11 dudes down, and we were able to work with our own kids, work with our coaches, some familiarity. And then they were able to do indie drills with players and coaches and just be mixed in with all these Washington kids. And so it was a totally new group of people, right? Like when we're at All Alaska, we're with the same kids that we've seen for the last 4 years, if you're a senior. So totally new group of people. It was great. Great camp, great experience. So if your coach is planning on taking a trip to a camp somewhere, go with them, right? That means your coach has done the research. They know this is a good camp. You're going to get valuable information out of it. You're going to get valuable coaching out of it. If you're wanting to go on your own to a camp, make sure you do your research and talk to your coach. Like, what do you think? Because there's a lot of what I'll I don't know, like underwear camps or whatever out there. There's a lot of scams out there for kids. They're just trying to make $60 a pop and, not really worried about evaluating talent or anything like that. Big things for me. I want to be able to put pads on. I want to be there a couple days. I want to hit, I want it to be football, whether that's local or out of state, finding a place that you want to go and trying to get in front of those coaches, I think is really important for our interior athletes. So I think that's one of, that's kind of a big difference. I will say the other kind of nice thing about being up here in the interior is there's fewer kids. Like in our conference, it's West Valley, Lathrop, us, and Kodiak. And so when it comes all conference time, like you put a lot of kids on that list. And so having fewer kids to kind of compete with for attention, compete with for those postseason awards, and even compete with on your football team to earn those starting reps, like there's a lot more opportunity that can present itself, whether you're playing two-way, if you're going to a big school and you're only playing one side of the ball, it kind of limits your options as far as college coaches see you. So that's kind of a benefit of being at a small school. You're going to get a lot of playing time, especially as an older kid, and you're going to get more opportunity to be seen by people when they are looking at you because it's a little easier to stand out.
You got to have that film. And I think that's one of the biggest advantages to Alaska is that whether you're in Anchorage, Fairbanks, the peninsula, wherever, you have an opportunity to get film both sides of the ball and have a pretty good huddle. You're not gonna be missed, I don't think. Right. I think that's a huge deal. So now let's walk through it. Let's go backwards a year. You got a kiddo yourself who's just finished his senior year, but let's go back to his junior year. As you guys started thinking about what college football looks like, what's the future look like? How does that recruiting process start for you guys as a father and a coach in their junior year, the end of it?
Yeah. So I think I've been kind of going through the recruiting process as a coach the last few years, helping other seniors try to find their fit. And that part has been a big learning curve for me, even, when I was first coaching in North Pole, 4 years before I got this job, I wasn't really a part of that process. And so I've been learning as a coach going through it and then kind of eyeballing my kid as he's been a freshman, sophomore, and trying to learn so I could be better for him, give him some guidance and stuff. But it's been interesting, I think every kid is like, oh, I'm going to be, I want that D1 offer, every kid kind of eyeballs that. And so going through his junior season, looking at those schools, looking at, if I went to Washington or Oregon or Minnesota, what schools would I want to be at? But getting looks from college coaches at camps, getting looks at, the NAIA, the D2, the D1 AA, even, talking to those coaches and kind of seeing where those opportunities lie for him. As a junior, you just tell him, get good film. You're most of the time, you're not going to get an offer roll in as a junior. So you're just trying to put yourself on film, get in front of coaches as much as possible, get in that weight room and just be ready for any opportunity. And then be ready for when coaches can contact you, because there's a lot of rules that they have to follow about when they can't contact you. So sometimes kids feel like, man, I haven't heard from somebody yet. I'm starting to feel disappointed. But that junior year is just like creating a base, really, more than anything else. Just create that base for yourself. If you have a Twitter set up with your information on it, keep that Twitter updated as you go, post positive things, celebrate other people, and follow those coaches and really start to examine, where are those schools that you want to go to. And you can kind of get a feel for a coach through their Twitter, who are they? What are the things that they're liking? And then kind of understand, maybe I do want to go play for that coach, or maybe I don't, like personality matters, who you want to play for matters. I was pretty blessed to play for Coach McCulloch at VCSU. He's a guy that takes care of the kids that get brought in. Not every place is like that. And so it was a good fit for me there. Mostly for Gabe, circle back. Mostly for Gabe, we've just been, as a junior, just working on getting him some good film, getting him that playing time, and taking those steps to put himself in a position that college coaches are interested in him and interested in seeing that growth. But there weren't offers rolling in or anything like that. He did get his first offer before the football season started. He got it from Valley, and you're able to post that on Twitter, and that's really cool. But we're, end of the season now. And so far, that Valley offer is the only offer that he's got. And so sometimes kids, they get one offer and they think, oh, more offers are going to roll in. And it's okay to have one offer at this point. As a senior, after football season's over, there's that lull between when, especially up here, because our season ends so much sooner than all the other high school seasons end. There's that lull between when our season ends and when that college season ends, and when that recruiting really kicks up. So this lull right here is a really nice time for kids. Clean up your Twitter, make sure that your film's good to go, right? You got it set up. There's no slow motion in there or anything. Make sure you've got a good email address, a good phone number for them. Your DMs are open on Twitter. You're looking at those colleges that you're considering, and then even like plan a trip. Go visit some schools if you have the opportunity, you have the ability. Go take a trip, even if you're not invited. Go take a trip down. Explore an area. See, for me as an Alaskan kid, I hadn't really been out of the state. I mean, I had been out of the state, but it's vacation. It's Disney World. You're going to Hawaii or whatever. You're not really thinking college. Could I live here? So take an opportunity, get out of the state, visit a few schools, see what it's like in a city, and give yourself an idea of what it could be like when you get there, so that when you show up, it's not like day one and I have to learn everything about this place. So those are some opportunities that we can take in between the end of our senior year and before that recruiting really gets going for those colleges. And then, December and January, that's the time where college coaches really start reaching out. And then for some schools, they don't finish their recruiting until March, April. So, don't give up just because you're not receiving a bunch of offers right at the end of your senior year. Keep work. If it's something that you want, keep working for it.
My thing I've told kids forever is that if you can't imagine yourself living there,
right,
you got to be really, really careful, because you could go there and football is that away from being done. And now all of a sudden you at least have to finish your year to get your credits, if that's or whatever. And the nightmare scenario is to go somewhere that you've never been before and you go, I don't know how I'm even living here. Right. And then the football, well, you're going to be a freshman again. You're starting over. Everybody's as good as you or better. Yep. And so you have to roll in with a little humility after being big man on campus in a place you might not want to live. And so,
I remember at Valley, I got down there and, I had some like walk-on opportunities at some D1 schools. So I walked in thinking, I was something special. And it was 1v1s, early on, and I was going against a kid and I was like, I'm about to smoke this kid. And he whooped me. And I was like, oh man, everybody here is good. That's what you learn pretty quick. And we talked about at the Senior Bowl too. When you're playing in that game, it's like a small college game. Everybody here is good. Everybody deserves to be here. They're fast, physical. You're not just going to find some dude that you're just going to run over because everybody's elite and they're all used to playing both ways and every snap for their team. And so now you're in a situation where you got 100 dudes and there's 11 spots or 22 spots or however you want to look at it. And you got to go out there and really compete and earn it. And when you get down there and you're not playing right away, that really wears on some kids. And we see a lot of kids that go down, they're somewhere for a semester, and then they're right back home because they just weren't mentally prepared for kind of the grind that was going to exist and not playing. Not playing football is super fun, but practicing 5 days a week and not playing football, not as enjoyable. And so kids kind of forget that. And there's no, for most colleges, there's not a C team, there's not a JV, like you're not kind of getting those reps that high school teams give you to get better at it. You gotta work hard. You gotta be in that weight room, and you gotta trust that every rep in practice is a game for you. This is your time to get better. And you gotta be willing and able to take on that challenge and enjoy that challenge. It has to be something that you love doing.
What would be your best advice for the kid because we got a lot of guys on the call or a lot of guys watching the video, and they're sitting there and they've really never been a backup. They've never been a backup, probably ever. CJV, varsity, never been a backup. Probably a two-way starter for a lot of the guys that are interested in college football. Right. What's the advice for that kid when he gets on campus and all of a sudden he is a backup? Because I think the perspective of what I sometimes worry that what kids want isn't what they want. They don't know what they want, really. Mm-hmm. So what's the advice for the kid who's got the offers, shows up on campus, and is suddenly like, this is harder than I expect. This is different. This is not what I expected.
I think for those kids, like enjoy the challenge, like understand that, through hard work, through adversity is how you get better. And if you just want it to be easy, then I don't know why you started playing football in the first place, so if you're planning on going to college, enjoy the challenge for what it is. Very few freshmen are going to show up and dominate at a college level, it's not going to happen. For most kids, there's some unicorns out there, but for most kids, they're going to show up and have to grind and work hard and earn their spot as a sophomore, as a junior. And that's fine. It's part of the process. And it's a great process if you're willing to work hard and willing to do that. And then the other thing I would tell kids like that are maybe feeling a little humbled or, they want to blame coaches, coach just doesn't like me, or I don't like that coach. And so that's why I didn't get play time. Is everybody who's there earned that spot to be there, and so did you. You earned a spot to be at that college. So act like it. Go out there and earn that spot every single day. Working hard every single day, and understand that you are good at football, or you wouldn't be on a college football field.
I love it. Thank you again, Coach. Appreciate you a bunch.